You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Courtney Huggins.
Hi, everybody.
Courtney, tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
I guess the best way to put it is professionally, I am a wife and mom.
That's one of the most important jobs, to be 100% honest with you.
Well, that's kind of what we thought too when we went this route.
Now, did you do that because you saw as more of a benefit just to your child, or did you see that? How did you decide to become a full-time mom?
Um, Probably what you said. I always kind of knew that I wanted to, at the least, um, have our kids in a private school or homeschool. And we just kind of got to the place where homeschooling made more sense than private school for us. So that's kind of how we landed in this after we had our daughter.
Is there a certain reason why? I know for me, I probably would have got more benefit being homeschooled, only on the kind of aspect that the education system is a lot bit flawed. It's a lot better now, but back in the day, like the answer, the cure all for everything when you had a certain condition like ADHD, like myself, was to toss a pill my way. And
Yeah.
I really needed specific time and I guess a little bit more of a different kind of educational route than most of the children that I think the problem with most public schools is that the teachers have a high number of students that they have to look after, different classes and stuff. So they only get that student for a certain amount of time. And for each child, they have their own unique kind of set of time frame that they have to work with to actually get the content down. I found when I was getting just grasp of something, we'd be moving on to the next thing. I'm like, wait a minute, I still don't know how to subtract this from this. And like, well, I guess you'll never figure it out. I'm like, all right, well, I've taken algebra one 3 times, so that's on them.
Yeah. Me and Josh actually had totally different educational backgrounds. He went to standard public school, went to community college and everything. I actually went to a private Christian school. I was lucky enough that my parents could do that for me. Um, and I got a better education than he did, but it was still set up like a standard school. I mean, you had X amount of time in this class, although you had less kids, which helped a ton. We had great relationships with our teachers. I'm actually still in contact with a lot of my teachers. And that was, oh gosh, more than 10 years ago.
Hey, I had my third grade teacher on my podcast on New Year's
Oh,
Day.
really?
I'm
That's
hoping to
awesome.
get her on this New Year's Day too. We're trying to set it up because she's one of the very few teachers who goes above and beyond for her students, literally takes the extra time, goes into their family home life, talks to the family, figures out what's going on here. Do you guys need a babysitter? Do you guys need this? Is there something going, narrows down that. And she's been doing it for 30 something years. And it's amazing that there's people like her out there in the field doing that. But when it comes to public and private schooling, there's a benefit to both and there's also a detriment to both. The
Yes.
benefit to public school is it helps you associate with other cultures and other, I guess, different aspects of when it comes to, some that are from a different type of lifestyle and some that are from another different type of lifestyle, such as being broke or such as being rich. You get to encounter the whole widespread. Private school kind of sticks around the same basis when it comes to the people that go there, usually fall around the same kind of um, wealth class, I would say. My cousin
That's
is
actually ironic that you say that. um,
why do you say that?
because at least for ours, I mean, we have secular private schools around. We used to play on with sports and stuff. So they would have the same, um, there was no faith base, so it didn't make anyone feel that they had to be a particular religion to go there.
Oh,
So
really?
you had those as an answer for part of it. Now those did typically tend to be from the very affluent areas. Um, but for ours, especially when we got to about middle school, we had a lot of people who their parents couldn't afford it. Some were allowed to come on scholarships for, if they were, if they could play good basketball, it helped the school grow. It helped them um, gain some advertising kind of, so it kind of helped them out in both ways to get their name out there. And then they also had people who, like their grandparents would pay for them to go because their parents couldn't afford it, or there was a lot of different ways for different people to come to the schools. And we actually would have some parents, I mean, this probably sounds bad, but I don't really know how else to put it because it started about when we were in middle school. There would be kids that would be having trouble in public school. They were getting in trouble a lot, and their parents would take them out of public school and put them in private to kind of like fix them. And so we ended up we'd end up with some of the same problems that you could imagine in public school, but it was more concentrated because there were less of us.
Yeah, you had more of a focus. See, with the public schools, the major detriment to it, which is also one of its benefits when it comes to culture and everything, it also is like everybody is open to come here if you're in that district. So you're
Yeah,
getting so many kids shoved into a school at once. I remember like our school, there was classes that were like there were a total of 800, 900 kids in that school. And I mean, in that class, just that year. And it
yeah.
all just trying to walk down the hallway, everybody's bumping into each other. You got no arm space. You feel like everybody's constantly around you to where people are like, get away from me, get away, like, getting like claustrophobic. And we had these breaks around lunchtime where you would either go to this one school called the tech school in the morning. It was more like where your trade jobs are at, your mechanic classes are at. It's about a 10-minute bus ride. It was always so fun to go there. And it was completely different because they would only have a total of like 150 kids in that school at once. So they had this giant, like, two-story school compared to our rat pack filled original school that were there most of the day. And it was so strange, but you needed that sense of relief because you were in smaller classes. I remember I was in an HVAC class for 3 years, and I was in a class with like just 10 students and ended up dwelling down into 8 students. And we all became so closely knit together and kind of because I mean we're around each other for 3 years. You don't just not
Yeah.
develop a relationship with those people in that class. And I remember we had one incident. One kid was actually killed by a car during the school year, was hit by a state trooper. And I remember our whole
Oh,
class, like people were coming down to our class, apologizing to all of us, like we were like members of his family. And we practically were. I mean, we all like we butted heads at times, but we all knew each other. We all kind of stood up and like, joked around with each other, and we still talk. Everyone talks today, but it's that close knit that you can get in a private school that you really
yes,
can't get in a public school.
that's very true.
So what made you decide? Did you just think that it would be better for you to homeschool your kid because no one can kind of know your kid like you know your kid? Because I know my cousin is actually a diabetic. So when he was born with this, his mom decided like the only person that can really care and understand him is going to be her. So he was very, very sheltered. Like he's still kind of new to try things now. Like I remember we're 14 years old. We're trying to go to the water park and go down the big slides and stuff. I'm going down head first, not even thinking. The guy's telling me to wait. I'm like, I'm just going head first, not even caring who's at the bottom. They're getting plowed out of the way. And he was always like, couldn't do it. Just wanted to stay on the ground, was very, very slow to new things because that's how he was sheltered. But he became very involved in the church. It became his local like community thing. Like, hey, it's Sunday, we're going to the church, we're going to help out. And it was a way of getting out of the house and kind of having that experience and having that
Yeah,
education, having that culture, which was something that I always looked at because he's pro, like he's my age, only 6 months behind me, but we're completely two different people. I have more of an open mind when it comes to everything this, and he's more of all into religion and all into this thing where we just talk and try and understand each other too, because it is pretty
Yeah.
fascinating.
I think I kind of relate to why she did it. Because ultimately, I mean, nobody really knows your child like you. Um, and I always kind of knew I wanted to be involved with her education. But once I started researching the education system now and learning more about how things are, I'm like, I think I would rather try to do this on my own because I want her to be able to pursue her. That's going to help her learn better. I don't want her to feel like she's failing because she's not living up to some standardized test, and I can help her because I understand her more so than if she was in a class setting. She learns very, very well with music and with visual, with videos. So I incorporate a lot of that with her school. I have a curriculum guide. I basically use as a guide, and we go. I'm a huge history nerd, so I was searching really, really hard for a curriculum that had history the way that I wanted to do it because every school does history the same way if they do history at all. And it's basically by subject matter. And then they go to the next chapter and it's further in time, but it's a different place or a different war or something like that. I
Yeah,
love,
I would have had so much more fun in history class if they would have told me the stuff that they don't want to tell you.
yeah,
Let me learn about government conspiracies. Let me learn about
yeah,
government projects. Let me find out what happened to JFK. Can anybody bring up this instead of like one, we're giving you a textbook. Oh, in 1982, whatever, or 1592, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. I'm like, yeah, but did anybody bring up that he used to bash babies' heads on rocks? Can we bring that up? And they're like, no, the textbook doesn't go there. Well, then what am I reading? On this page it says if I turn to page 32, I'm gay. I don't know what that means. This is not something I want to take any education from. You know what I mean? It
yeah,
was it was really really strange because I mean, history was always fascinating to me. I found more of my passion arising with Greek mythology and things
yeah,
of that sort, but my school never focused on it. But if I was
yeah,
homeschooled, someone could have found out that's something I was interested in and actually helped me get there. I always
yeah.
said the education system could be fixed in one simple way. Give them a test at the age or grade, whatever, of sixth grade, and ask them, what do you want to learn? Give them a survey of all these options. Like, well, what do you like to do? Do you like to work with your hands? Do you like to do this type of stuff? Maybe we should put you in wood shop instead of putting you in calculus.
They should definitely, I think that's a good idea. I would say to do that before then because I was actually digging through some of my old stuff when I was a kid. And I don't know how we were on the topic, but me and Josh were talking about something, and I'm like, I really can't draw. I think we were talking about something with our daughter, and I'm like, I really can't draw. And I was going through all of these old things, and I found these drawings that I did. And I'm by no means am I a Picasso, but they were way better than I can't draw. But it wasn't nurtured. So now my answer is I can't draw.
Yeah, I definitely think that when it comes to the nurture aspect in the education system, it gets very hard and difficult. When like a teacher has a class of 40 something students or 30 something students, and you see one kid drawing in the back of class, okay,
Yeah,
and just scribbling down, as a parent, if you're homeschooling your kid and you see your kid doodling or something, you're going to go over and look at it and address it. And if it's really good, you're going to realize maybe I should help her chase this down, help him
yeah.
chase this down, see if that develops into anything. But a teacher can't do that in a classroom with so many students because she can't give a certain amount of time to one student because then she's giving favoritism, or if she tries to get with all the students, all 30 of them, trying to help them out all at the same levels and time and pace and everything, then she's going to be way overworked. It's crazy to think the education system is flawed in so many ways, but one of the main aspects is the fact that they're completely understaffed as well.
They're understaffed, and I always think that it's funny when looking at the current education system in our country. The model that our school system is now, that most westernized countries use, is based off of Prussia, which was pre-Germany, and they put it in place because they needed workers for the industrial age. So they wanted them to take orders. They wanted them to stand in line. They wanted them to react to bells, when to go for break and when to go for lunch. That they took the individual part out of it, and they were working really hard to do that. And when I started researching how the school system came to be, um, they actually referenced that they wanted that Americans, as they were, had this, I guess the best way to put it is, rebellious streak. Like, they didn't really take to being told what to do by people, and that would not work in a factory style country.
Yeah, the education system is that, and just life in general, it seems like nowadays is it's got a factory template to it. It's made to create people that work a 9 to 5 lifestyle. And for a lot of people now that we're seeing in this new age of technology, it's not all of us. We're seeing so many entrepreneurs and self-owned business people rather than people that want to be stuck in a day job because it's became boring and bland.
Yeah, our generation, I would say, is definitely not 9 to 5ers. I think we grew up with both parents out of the home, both working all the time to be status quo and keep up with the Joneses. And here we are. We're in school the same amount of time as them. We don't earn a paycheck for it. Then we're either extracurriculars, or we're at home, maybe with a relative, or if we're lucky, the parents get to pick us up, or we're in after school care. There's no family time anymore. Whereas, say, our grandparents' generation, you at least had more women still at home, more moms still at home. So even if the kid was in school, the mom either took them to school, or was there when they got on the bus, or was there when they got home, was there for the games. You know, some of that has disintegrated. And just like you were talking about with the nurture, with having a parent home, even if it's just a little more like those times, you could pick up on, maybe something's wrong with my kid. Oh, they're really good at drawing, or they're really good at woodworking. I can encourage that and help foster it, things like that. But now we're still in that keeping up with the Joneses. I wouldn't say still in the mentality, but we're products of that mentality at this point. And I think that that's why we're shifting how we work as a society.
Yeah, it's crazy to see the kind of term homeschool be changed throughout, like, just I mean, kind of the generations. Because it seemed like back in the day, if you told somebody you were homeschooled, you were seen as like an idiot. Like, what? You couldn't go to
Yeah,
school?
you couldn't hack school. Yeah.
But you're actually seeing a major benefit to people that are homeschooled. First of all, I mean, you do miss out on some things. Like, I'm not saying bullying is good, but I was bullied pretty bad, and it got my ass motivated to go through something because I believe to truly experience something and get a benefit from something, you have to go through something. I'm in no way intellectual. I would no way want people to be bullied at all. But I've made myself into a better person with the opportunity and the roads I've taken to overcome those things that have happened to me in the past. But when you're going through homeschool, interaction is one of the main important things. And I know you were talking about before about with taking your child out and going to experience doing outside activities as well. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of people, you say homeschool, oh, that means they're just in the house 24/7 playing video games, doing this. No, but it's also going out and creating those interactions as well. And I kind of wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, what types of things or outgoing activities do you include in your curriculum?
Um, well, we have a couple of different friends that homeschool too, um, with varying ages. So we can go and do stuff with them, whether it's just play date style stuff, and they get to kind of learn on their own, doing their own things, and then they can learn from each other because they're interested in different stuff. Um, and then we do a lot of museums. Like I said, I'm a history nerd, and we have a lot of historical places around where we live. So we'll go to battleground parks. We'll go to some of the homestead style historical sites around here. Um, I mean, even something as simple as maybe like a small town parade, or go to a farm and do apple picking. Or, I mean, there's science, there's PE involved. I mean, there's so many things when you start breaking it down that's involved in everything that we do. So, I mean, it's just kind of like, oh, well, that seems interesting. Well, that's in the middle of the week. Oh, well, we'll go do it.
Do you find that like if you really can't call it homework, it's more like just work?
um, I don't even know if I would call it work because it's enjoying it.
So
And
more of like an exercise.
yeah, I think so. Because I mean, you never really quit learning. And if you can learn to love learning from the beginning, then it's never really work. And a lot of people come to realize what they enjoy learning about later on. So I'm hoping that I can foster that with her from an early age, and we can concentrate on what she enjoys learning about from the beginning instead of her having to come to it on her own later.
I find with more of the classes that I found very fascinating in school were the ones where the teachers made it more fun, more interactive, such as like I
Yeah.
had a science teacher that would put chemicals together and make explosions in the classroom that really caught your attention. And reading teachers that would be like, go pick a book you want. I'm like, doesn't matter the page length. They go, you get a piece of candy for every time you read a book. So I would go and get like the really thin books. But I ended up picking up these books that were like, and I want to go back to my middle school. They probably wouldn't let me back in there, but I want to go to the library and find out what these books were because they were like 40 pages long. That was the minimum you had to do. And they were giant, like comic book art on each page. Like basically, it was like reading a comic book, but
Yeah.
they would teach you all about religion.
Now that's cool.
So I was learning about a lot of Greek mythology, the legends behind that, a lot of folklore, a lot about like the Mayans, and they were all these stories wrapped into one. Where I found like, whoa, I might want to go for a philosophy degree. Like, just there were something that were quick reads that I still think about today. Like there were very impactful books, and they were in this section of the library where no one would ever think to look. I mean, if you're actually understanding what the hell the Dewey Decimal System is, that took me forever thinking I was gonna need that to navigate my life, which never happened.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, it was in this low section. I picked up these books. I was like, "I would like check these out," and there's dust on them and stuff. She's like, "Yep, sure." Next thing I know, I'm reading these things. I'm like, "Whoa!" I'm learning about Hades and Persephone and Greek mythology. I'm learning about so many different things where it started soaking in my brain because every time afterwards, I was getting a sticker or a piece of candy.
Yeah. I mean, it makes such a difference when you can kind of have a say in what you learn because you enjoy it, because you have an interest in it.
The developmental processes of people are so different too. I remember they called it enrichment class, which was basically like a nice term for slow class or people that just couldn't pay attention. They just send you out of the room. And I mean, I was a quick reader. I was on a 12th grade reading level when I was in like sixth grade. I could read any book, but the fact was I had ADHD. So trying to read a page in a book was like, I can't do this. Like, this is
Yeah.
too much. And so they put me in this class, and I remember I was in this class with all these people that were reading, they would read a page, but it would stutter on all the words. And for me, that was too much. Like I'm sitting there, like tapping my foot, trying to like, oh man, we've been on this one page for 30 minutes, but like I'm like trying not to say anything. And it was only like five of us in the group. But I remember we would just stop reading the book and we would try and discuss it, but then
Yeah.
everybody would just start talking about different things. Like, did anybody see the episode of Fresh Prince of Bel Air? And the teacher's even going in on it. And I'm like, what? And she goes, did you know that when they asked Will Smith before he got his role in Fresh Prince, they said, what would you like your character's name to be? And remember, when you pick it, That's what people are going to know you as for the rest of your life. And he said, I want you to call me Will Smith. And that's what you remember him as. Because you don't remember Carlton as Alfonso, even though that's his
No.
real name. I thought that was always fascinating, but we were having discussions like this in class, and I was like, this is the education I want. Like, this is
Yeah,
stuff I would like to know. I don't care what whoever added in, you know, numbers and alphabet letters in math. Like, what? Why are you doing y2 minus x1 squared over the third axle of the planet when am I going to ever need to know that? Can I just focus on like how to build a bird shop, how to do my taxes, how to do this type of stuff so I can be able to actually function with my life rather than waste my time learning something that I'm probably never going to use.
that's very true. And I agree.
I think there's a major benefit to homeschool, and I really give you a lot of appreciation for that because that's a hard thing as a parent, first of all, to do, to like establish that system for their child. And I think it is a major benefit for you as a person because it takes a lot of patience not only to raise a child, but to also teach one.
Well, I think it's a funny idea that we have now in society as a whole, that you have a kid and you can teach it to walk. You're going to teach it how to eat and be able to chew it and swallow it. All these things that make it mobile up until age 5, and then you're no longer qualified to teach them. That's kind of how it's set up. And that was one of the things that kind of got me hung up on it and started researching it myself, because I'm like, if I can teach somebody to walk and to eat and to crawl and, and to go to the bathroom by themselves and how to basically survive from infancy to 5 years old, that's the hard part. Figuring out how they learn and then providing them with the stuff that they like, that's a lot easier. Now, I mean, you have different hurdles at different ages for sure, but it always fascinated me that for some reason 5 years old was just like a magic number, and then you were no longer qualified to teach your kid unless you had a degree.
Well, most people see like they as parents, like, working two jobs or something that when they send their kid to school, that's like an 8-hour vacation for them. Like it's just,
Yeah, I
there's
know.
just
I've
something.
heard that.
It's true though. That's what we kind of turned it into. You don't care if your kid comes home with anything. I don't know how many times I came home and never asked once, "Oh, do you have any homework? Do you have any report cards or stuff?" No, I just left in my book bag. Like it was literally
Yeah.
just going there was just getting me out of the house. That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it, that's what it's turned into. It's turned into the default thing. While I'm at work, I don't have to worry about them being home or needing this. They're going to get their education. When half the time they're sitting on their phone in the middle of class. I mean, that's
Yeah.
another impactful thing towards teachers. I mean, as a parent, you pay for that phone bill. So if you're going
Yeah.
to take that phone away, it's going away.
Yeah.
You know,
That's very true.
when a teacher threatens to take a kid's phone, they just go, "Oh, you can't really take my phone. All right, whatever, send me out of class." They're still not getting the education anyway.
No. And teachers have it so hard now because of that mentality too, because teachers are expected to kind of discipline and parent to a certain degree, but it's not small community schools like we had way back when it was a one-room schoolhouse and everybody knew everybody. And these teachers don't really have but so far that they can try to discipline their child. But at the same time, you'll have people say, well, it starts at home. That's true, but both parents aren't at home. And then the kid, their their school is a standard time. The parents' jobs might not be a standard time, so they can't pick them up from school and ask them how their day was. They have to ride the bus home, which takes 2 hours depending on traffic. And then you spend what, maybe 3 hours together if you're even in the same room, if people haven't retreated to their own spaces. So there's not really any interaction, because there's a lot of parents will say, well, the discipline starts at home. This is true, but if you're not home together or you're not spending the time together, they spend most of their time at school, but the teacher doesn't have that authority that the parent does. So it's a very difficult balancing act to try to ultimately create a person that can go out into the world and
and
survive.
survive. Yeah. It's also, you want to talk about, having the authority. What about having the connection that only a parent can give to their child? I mean,
That's very
I
true.
find like having the connection with my family, or having connection, even though we're not super connected, but my dad, like if he would have took me, like, well, he likes the nature. If I was homeschooled, let's go camping.
Yeah,
That would have changed everything about anything that I would have learned. I would have picked up so much more. I would have picked up things I would think that are boring to me now, like fishing. Maybe I
yeah,
would have slowed down a little bit. But you want to talk about, like, so the workload of parents nowadays, homeschool is not really a actual possibility. But if you have that option, if you have that ideal, I'm pro for it. I do believe that there has to be some interaction with the outside thing, which is what I like what you do, where you go to the park and you try and show and experience. They hang out, still have play dates and stuff where they hang out with your neighbor's kids or something.
yeah,
That you need, that interaction always needs to be there, because they can't be introvert 100%. They can't just learn from just sitting in a class or whatever inside the house. They have to go still out and experience the world, which you can get a different side of the things, because half the time kids are just locked up in school.
yeah.
They
Well,
there's
the
not too
other
many
thing
field
about
trips
that,
anymore.
no, I mean they were doing away with that years ago. But the thing about interaction, because that typically comes up when anybody says they homeschool. But like you said, a lot more people are homeschooling, so there's a lot more groups of homeschoolers that you can find and connect with and spend time with, which is great. But the other thing is, when people ask about interaction, I saw this one in a group. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a kid, and some person walked up to them in a store or something, and they asked the kid why they weren't in school, and they said they were homeschooled. And then the adult said, well, what about socialization and interaction? She says, I think it was a she. I think it was a girl. Um, she said, I'm socializing with you and interacting with you right now. So it's not just peers. You're not just learning, because that's the other thing. A long time ago, not too terribly long ago, but with the one room schoolhouse style learning, it was all different ages. So you had the older kids that could help the younger kids, and they could influence. You were learning from a range of experience, even within the group of kids being taught. Whereas now you're with the same age. They don't know any more than you do. And the teacher's trying their best to teach you all the same thing. But what would it be if they were a variance of ages where, there's an 11-year-old who's already done part of this, and now they can help the teacher with this kid that's struggling? Or, I mean, there's just so many different benefits. The way that we do it now is it's broken and it needs fixing. I just don't know how we go about fixing it.
I think a lot of my education and kind of understanding of everything, and kind of where I've gotten to the point now in my life, has totally come from podcasting. The interactions and experiences I hear from other people, and just the conversations I've had, hundreds, all from around the world. And that's given me more of a benefit than anything I've ever pulled out of the education system. That interaction in general, I think a good class you should add in your kid's curriculum whenever he gets old enough is, podcasting. Teach
Yeah,
them a form of communication, that we have this technology that is a benefit, but we choose to make it a detriment when we involve it so much into our everyday lives. When you pull out your phone at the minute of a dinner table, man, it you lose the connection with your family. You end up getting nostalgia off your phone rather than the communication and connection you're supposed to have with your loved ones. You know, that is where it's a detriment. But if we use it to a benefit, how it's meant to be able to connect bridges and connect us with people that we might never have an interaction with in our everyday lives, you get to learn something. I think there's so much to be heard from storytelling and just having conversations with people that you might never have experienced without technology, that is a major benefit to your life. I mean, connecting socially and just connecting with people, there's something beautiful about it that just can't be remanufactured.
that's very true. And kind of gotten to the place where it's even hard for people to make eye contact or make small talk in line when they're checking out. And I can say one thing for sure, because I'm more of an introvert. Josh is definitely the extrovert, and our daughter takes after him and always has. So I know we were shopping this weekend, and there was a lady and her family behind us in line, and she had a little boy who was sitting on in the buggy, and our daughter just started talking to her, and she's like, "Hi, I'm such and such. What's your name?" And she told her, and she said, "What's his name?" And because the little boy didn't want to talk, he didn't want to interact, and so she just talked to the adult. She just talked to the mom and told her like all we were doing all weekend, everything while we were trying to check out. So I'm very grateful for that, but I mean I don't know that I really helped teach it other than I saw it in her and I just kind of let her go with it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you don't seem like an introvert. Actually, you're talking a lot more than your husband did. But I mean, I don't know. I think that's also a sense of connection too. I think this ability to be able to just have a conversation, not tolling it on anything or not having it super structured creates an amount of freedom where everyone feels like they can put in their opinion. I feel like too many times nowadays people are too obsessed with their own lives or just too afraid to offend anybody to, strike up a conversation anymore, truly care and take the time to. And I try and respark that with the podcast a little bit, just trying to be like, hey, nothing ever needs to be an argument. We can just have a conversation. And I mean, I learned from Josh, and I kind of want to ask you about it too. You guys both do this podcast, like the Wandering Pilgrims. Like,
Yeah.
do you try and incorporate? Because I know it's about kind of teaching and kind of showing the benefit and support behind looking towards Christianity and reading scripture a little bit, kind of making your own um, inference or your own kind of encounter with it rather than, I guess, what ordained or whether structured religion does. Because I feel like a lot of people nowadays either don't have a religion or they choose to kind of worship at home in their own understanding of what the word means, because organized religion has kind of became a little bit of a cesspool when it comes to they lost the true idea behind it.
Oh, I agree with you there. Um, we we've tried several different times since we've been married, different churches. And I mean, like I said, I went to Christian church, so or Christian church. I went to Christian school. Um, but and a lot of people think, oh, okay, so they had it from the beginning. Well, I mean, my parents took me to church when I was younger, but I mean, pastors retire or they move away and then you kind of fall out of it because it takes so long to find another one. And we kind of fell out of it when I was relatively young. But I had school. What I learned in school, I had great Christian teachers. I had good Christian examples, which were nice. It was great. But I basically got church every week, and that's kind of where my questioning and looking for something different came from.
And you start to
Because
notice when you question, they get a little bit like they either don't have an answer for it. They're like, oh, well, this is just how it is. Or they start to be like, hey, we can't have you, you're shaking other people's beliefs. And they try and kind of cut you out of the community a little bit, because I think with organized religion, it is, at least every place I've been with it, it is like if you don't think like the community, then we just don't want you here because you're going to shake somebody else's beliefs. And I'm like, you guys created your own. You're not talking about the main one. You've lost the main aspect of it, because like just reading the book, you start to question things. Nobody ever has an answer, or they just say give you like one default answer or something like, oh, that's just how it is, it's just how it was made. And then if you start to really question, I know so many people that have been like told like, hey, we can't have you coming around here doing this because you're shaking other people's beliefs. And I was like, if it's something where you can't ask questions, then what's the point of it? Because I think that's what life is just one giant question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it did start probably when I was about in high school. My entire class, which was pretty small, we were definitely ones to ask questions and kind of confront the traditional ideas of church and stuff with our teachers, which I was blessed to have teachers that would actually have the discussions with us, to the best of their ability. Um, but I also would see every week the people that I knew were in church 2 and 3 times a week. That every time a pastor would come who wasn't their pastor, it was a different pastor every week. When there was an altar call, they'd be up there crying, and it almost, I, I don't know. I mean, I remember sitting there with the thought running through my head. If you're having the same problem that you were having last week to the point that you're in tears at the front of the church at the altar, do you not think that you should take the advice that says in the Bible and to pray in a closet? That it's supposed to be one on one. That you're having, if it's that bad that you're up there every single day, why are you doing it in front of everyone? Why are you not having a relationship with God to where He can help you with it? And if need be, maybe a pastor. Why is it every week in front of a different pastor, in front of your peers?
It seems like we have our own interactions with people in our everyday life. Does that mean we should have our own interaction with God, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's supposed to be a personal thing. It's not supposed to be a showy thing. A lot of the time, it's very showy. And for us, when we would try different churches, if we had a question, we weren't really answered. Um, and now we visited a few churches that we believe the people were great. The people were some of the, what I would consider pretty right on the path for their faith. Um, but the leadership was lacking. And from our reading, churches used to be somebody teaching in a house with a group of people so that you could know each other enough to say, hey, we're in this together. I really think what you're doing is not good for you. I really think it could hurt you and be a detriment to either you personally or your faith or whatever. You don't have that now in churches. They're just too big. There's no way to have that personal kind of accountability group, um, with the way organized church is nowadays.
I definitely think we lose when it comes to community. We've turned it into a construct rather than communication.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
it sucks. I really hope that, in the years coming, you're seeing a lot of people that either lose their religion or turn it into their own form. Where religion at this point where we're at now, when it comes to or not recognized, but structured religion, it's seen at an all-time low. It's never been at this low of percentages, just on the basis of millennials that don't have a religious belief, based on the prospect that their parents probably didn't focus on that because they're too busy working,
Yes,
and too many people leaving the church because it's turned into a form where it's not what it originally was intended to be, an understanding and the communication aspect of it. I think that religion is all about whatever it means to you. I'm open minded. I mean, I'm an ordained minister under the United Church of Bacon. It took me forever to get that, but I got it. Cost me 40 something dollars and an hour of my time at my local courthouse trying to convince this woman that it was a recognized religion, which it is. But it was only under the idea of that. If you look at parody religions, they're not meant to crack jokes on actual religion. It's meant to highlight that religion is one's true interpretation of whatever brings them to an experience or understanding of something. And diving heavily into parody religions, doing all of this, and talking to my cousin who studied every single major religious scripture, and he still questions everything. That's his right. Who's to say God's not all around us and God's what is this just one being? If you start to talk like that, organized churches get a little bit questionable, which I never was a fan of. I know
Yeah.
my cousin always, when I say something like this, my cousin goes, why do you got to talk like that? Can't you just let people like just worship?" And then, I'm like, I'm letting people do what they want, but I'm just asking, do you think that's weird that when I bring up the questions, they look at me strange? Like,
Yeah.
shouldn't in this life we ask questions because nobody ever truly knows the answers. If Morgan Freeman is God, that's awesome. But I won't know if there's anything out there until I get that. Religion, the best part about it is it's for some people and it's not for some people. You might come across it in your life through a tragic incident, or you might come across it just through with an understanding or something where you just randomly snap and go, this is what it is, seeing your child born or something.
Yeah.
There's so many things and encounters that affect our brain that go into our everyday life where some people turn to religion because they need that structure. They need that feeling, that knowing that there's a higher place out there. And I think it's all on the basis of, if you do good acts, what we consider to be good, being beneficial to people and not closing anybody off, you're on the right path. But when you truly fall down the wrong path is when you start to take advantage of others and lose the true humanistic aspect of what makes people a species and what makes us great.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, organized religion, when you do dive into reading, and I mean, it's something you have to commit to doing. I actually read a statistic not long ago that I think it was only 11% of professing Christians have ever read through the book, the Bible. That is what their faith is based on. So 89 out of 100 Christians haven't read through the book. I'm one of them. But I'm trying to fix that. Um, but the parts that I have read, one of the biggest ones that stuck out to me when I was thinking about church as it is, and it says you're not supposed to be conformed to the world, you're supposed to be set apart from it. And when I go to a church and there's a stage, you're not set apart from it. You're putting one person over everybody else. You're not equals. Somebody is set higher than the rest. When it's a concert that takes 30 minutes before I get to anybody who's probably talking at me more than teaching me, it's of the world. When you're putting coffee shops in so that you can lure people to come, when it's free food Wednesday service, or if you're helping the community, it's one thing, but a lot of them are not set up. Those things aren't set up for helping the community. They're ways of getting people to come in and basically, you know, I hate to equate it to used car salesman, but that's the best way that I can do it right now, because I'll see the ad on TV for come test drive a car, and then we'll give you a free TV just for test driving the car.
Holy
So,
crap, a free TV. They don't
I
care
mean,
about test driving a car. They only care about that free TV.
exactly. So that's, I mean, it's conforming. And the thing about Christianity is it's supposed to be set apart. And I don't think that the church, once the people started leaving, they started conforming to try to get people to stay or to come back. And that was the wrong way to do it. You're losing what makes you special. The Muslim community doesn't conform to the world. The Hindu community, with their religious practice, doesn't conform to the world with how they worship and things. I mean, the Jewish community largely doesn't conform to the world. So why is Christianity doing that? Is your faith, is it not strong enough that God will bring the people and give you the words to say and inspire you to help the people that need helping? Because your life is supposed to be your witness. You're supposed to help others and love as best you can everyone that you come encounter with through action, not just words. And if all you have is free coffee and talk at people for 30 minutes while they kind of mingle, you're not really helping them long term, not to your goal.
I think each person is like kind of like a flower, they get Each one takes a little bit more water and some take less.
Yeah,
It's what you said it perfectly. It's just it takes really time and understanding. I think the more people try and be open minded, the better understanding and more of a compassionate world it's going to create. We choose to make race, we choose to make religion stigmatized when we choose to hold it so accountable for creating a negative environment, such as if you bring religion up at the dinner table, someone's going to have a different view, and then you guys got to argue. You choose to let that happen. Why don't we just talk? I'm not a religious guy. You're a religious person. Let's just talk. And there's no argument. It's just about trying to understand each person's perspective and form of it and come to an understanding. At least you don't have to agree with that person, but see it from their perspective. I think that's one of the most amazing things that people need to look back into themselves for, because I think we all have this open mindedness about us, but we close it off truly when we just choose to go with what we know.
yeah, that's very true.
And I really appreciate you, Courtney, doing the podcast. I mean, it's been great talking to you. I really I haven't really found anybody that, understands the education system a little bit like how I do. It's pretty interesting.
Well, we are out there. There are a few of us.
And I really want to give you here a minute at the end to be able to promote your guys' podcast and everything. Tell people where they can find your awesome stuff.
Okay. So we are called the Wandering Pilgrims podcast. It's me and my husband Josh. We are currently on the Anchor app. You can also find us at every major podcasting site. And we also have, of course, our Instagram and Facebook pages. Um, and basically, all we're trying to help people do is just get back to basics. I mean, you don't have to be a scholar to read the Bible and pick it up and understand it. And especially if you lived in America or a westernized country, and if you're a history buff, the book, the Bible itself, kind of influenced a lot of our laws and how our country is set up. So even if you're just a history buff and looking to learn more about your country and your history, Christianity has been around for so long. It's definitely a book to read for no other reason than historical. Um, so I would encourage anybody that felt like they can't do it or that they're not a scholar, just pick it up and try. Um, you can always put it back down if you don't think that you can. But I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do, and to have accountability groups with each other so that we can help each other be better people.
And if you message the page on Instagram, you're going to be talking to Courtney because she handles the business aspect of the podcast.
Yeah, I handle the Instagram for sure.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode Out of the Blank, and stay tuned for our next episode.